Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and I wanted to remind everybody, I showed this in my last video where Jeremy Hogan said, because it really did not even dawn on me, that we're only looking at potentially around 45 days before we get a Ripple decision. I think that is huge. Time flies, doesn't it? I mean, it's been a long time, but it's still, at the same time, it flies. And it was a real, this reply from him was really a realization and a wake-up call for me that this is any moment now, okay? And a lot of things, two things that I'm thinking about is in the lead up. One of them is that any of my final accumulation of XRP, that's one of them. Now I already have Ripple private equity, and I just checked, and Link2 does have some, but they don't, I mean, the second that this decision comes down, Ripple is then one way or the other. Ripple doesn't have to go public in the United States. One way or another, Ripple's heading to IPO once this decision comes down. Whether they do it in London or the US or whatever. But the point is I have a feeling that Ripple equity is going to be a lot harder to get. That private equity once that decision does come down. And so I was just reminding everybody it's still there. The link's in the top of the description. Link2 is one of my sponsors. Go check them out. Tell them DAI sent you. Mr. B, who works at Link2, had a great tweet today. He doesn't tweet often anymore from his Mr. B handle, but he says 1,861 days since XRP hit its all-time high of $3.84. Since then, you could have met the love of your life, got married, had a baby, and just celebrated their 4th birthday. I see a lot of pain out there. This hasn't been easy. Much respect to those who haven't given up. Well, the Digital Asset Investor is one of those who hasn't given up. $3.84, 4th of January. One little known fact is that is also the exact same day that XLM hit its all-time high on January 4th of 2018, 1,861 days ago. This is also an interesting reminder. Never forget how fast this baby is going to skyrocket. This is how fast it can happen. This was XRP on the 28th of December 2017 at $1.43, okay? This is what the Ethereum people do not want you to remember. On the very next day, on December 29th, 2017, XRP was larger than Ethereum. It had a larger market cap at 85 billion, okay? And it was at $2.21. Look at that. 24 hours, 53%. 7 days, 94%. I was there. I remember it, folks. And ever since then, everything that we've witnessed, all the FUD, the lawsuits, the SEC lawsuit, the ganging up by crypto pundits, the traditional media, the crypto media, all piling on and either bashing or stopping coverage of XRP, all coordinated. And we watched it, and it was all because of that right there. This is what they could not have, folks. The Bitcoin, Ethereum free pass, all of it happened from that point. That's what initiated it. Now, we talked about this last week, I believe, okay? This is a little clip, and they're referring to that, and I want to make sure we really drive this point home since we're in that last 45 days. Listen to what he says. This is about remember, the library judge made the SEC agree that XRP or not that XRP, but that library in the secondary market, in other words, digital assets in the secondary market are not securities, and got the SEC to agree to that. But it wasn't a judgment. But the judge did, as I remember, the judge did make a comment that will be a judgment in the Ripple lawsuit. They are going to make a judgment on that issue.
Library tweeted out Coinbase should relist XRP. Under the SEC versus Library standard, XRP sold by secondary holders are not considered a security. And Johnny, we got an article I want to dive into, but before we do, what do you think about these blanket statements and the fact that Library is defending XRP against the SEC's trial?
Yeah, I mean, I know Brad Garghouse is happy to pig and shit. That's exactly what he's been asking for. It's very interesting that Library is coming out and saying that now. I guess they feel confident that the SEC is off their back to come out and stick a thumb in their eye with this comment.
Well, and this is something that John Deaton has always been extremely confident about. I think two things. I know one thing, the fact that XRP itself, just like the oranges and Howie, were never a security. John Deaton has always felt like this was a winner because the Howie did not say that the oranges themselves were securities. And I've also felt like John Deaton was always very confident that XRP in the secondary market was not a security, and that the judge, just as they did in the Library case, in the Ripple case, they'll actually rule on it. But in that case, they just put it on the record. Now, so I put this out today, 3 things that I think will happen in the SEC versus Ripple case. 1, and I'll add some others on. 1, I think XRP, they will, if they rule, I don't know if they'll actually rule on it, but it'll be obvious XRP is not itself, just like the oranges themselves are not a security. 2, XRP, and I don't know if they'll proclaim it for all digital assets, but at least XRP, the way I heard it in Library, is that the judge will rule, in my opinion, they'll rule that XRP in the secondary market are not securities. Now that's huge. That's huge, because the second they do that, all these exchanges, it's like Coinbase, you don't have any excuses left, and anything built on the XRP ledger too. Flare, Songbird, all the stuff that some of these have been holding back, all stuff, if it's built on the XRP ledger, it's fair game. That would be my understanding. 3, I think that they're going to say that the escrowed XRP has limitations on how it can be sold, and they may place additional limitations, maybe institutional accredited investors only. Also, this guy had quoted my tweet, and he goes, "Let me add this. I agree. Ripple pays a fine." I think that especially if it's settlement, I think that that's going to be what Gary Gensler wants. He wants to be able to hold this up so that he can proclaim it a victory. How does he do that? It needs to be the largest settlement in history. That way, if he loses his butt in this thing, if Ripple gets everything they want and he really loses his butt, he can at least say, I got a record settlement. This is, that's if there's a settlement. And I still say settlement. Look at this. This is also from Jeremy Hogan. This is from February 5th, a couple days ago. Do you think we could be getting our emails decision this week, Jeremy? And he said, I thought we'd get a ruling already, so obviously my timing's off. In other words, the Hinman documents, he thought that we would already have a ruling on that. Folks, that's the ruling. When we see those unredacted, then I will tell you, I will say, looks like I was wrong about settlement. I don't think it happens. I think we see a settlement before that happens. All right, check this out. This is Catherine Austin Fitz on Tucker Carlson. Now, something we've said about CBDCs on this channel, or just digital assets in general, from day one, and I'll say it again. Any new technology can be used for good or for evil. I'll use drones as an example. Drones are one of the coolest new technologies there are. People could use drones for warfare, or they could use drones to monitor traffic jams or whatever, okay? There's 1,000 different ways, I don't care what it is, that you can use it. Digital currencies are no different. They can be used for pure evil or pure good. I'm hoping for pure good, okay? But there is no way for us to know. We just know it's coming. So I'm sure there's many battles ahead on making sure that it's not used for evil, but it's coming. So she's going to tell you here about the evil part.
The reality, as the financial system gets more controlling and more invasive, it's a little bit like bringing up a corral around us. And CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and vaccine passports or digital IDs are sort of the last shutting of the gate. It's hard for many people to imagine the risks here because we're so used to living with financial transaction freedom. And we don't understand that when this gate closes on us, we literally will be sitting in a system where the central banks believe that our assets belong to them and they can dictate where we can spend money and what we can spend money on. The important thing to understand is central bank digital currencies are not currencies. It's a financial transaction control grid, and it gives the ability for the central bankers, and they've said this publicly, the ability to not only set the rules centrally, but enforce the rules centrally. If you don't behave, you can have your money turned off. So if you've enjoyed liberty, it's very hard to perceive this iceberg before you hit it. And that's why it's so important, and I commend you for talking about CBDCs. We need to not let the propaganda persuade us that, one, this is convenient, or two, that we need this, or three, not only the dangers of CBDCs, but the opportunities if we start to reverse financial.
All right. I agree. I don't want that either. Now, check this out. This morning we covered the digital pound. This guy says, according to Daily Telegraph, the digital pound will be risk-free. Yeah, well, except for inflation and currency speculation and UK's political and military power. But there's look at this line right here out of this article. A digital pound would be issued by the bank and would not bear interest. Unlike other digital currencies such as Bitcoin, it would also be risk-free. In other words, they're not going to pay you anything on it, but it's going to be risk-free because they said so. I think that the only way to do this is to have private currencies alongside these government currencies. That way, if they start creating control mechanisms, you can slide yours over into one of the privately issued currencies that's not controlled by them. Check this out. This is Nick Carter, who's a Bitcoin maxi. I don't want to alarm, but since the turn of the year, a new Operation Choke Point type operation began targeting crypto space in the U.S. It is a well-coordinated effort to marginalize the industry and cut off its connectivity to the banking system, and it's working. Referring to Binance plus Signature Bank or something else. It's a coordinated pattern of activity between Fed regional banks, other bank regulators, and the White House, all designed to stifle the crypto space and starve it of banking access. Then, of course, we have our old buddy Elizabeth Warren. 8 Democratic lawmakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren, urged the EPA and the Department of Energy to compel crypto miners to disclose their energy consumption data. In other words, she's setting it up to send all the miners out of the U.S. Well, if they aren't in the U.S., where would it send them? Well, maybe to her buddies in China. Because here's Patrick McHenry, and he's talking about the threat that is China, the economic threat. And I said, hey, Patrick McHenry, China continues to go forward with their digital yuan while the U.S. company Ripple is held back by a lawsuit dropped by Jay Clayton and Bill Hinman, who both helped Chinese Alibaba go public. Investigate this. And it's being carried out now by Gary Gensler, who is Elizabeth Warren's buddy.
The actions of the Chinese Communist Party last week serve as a clarifying moment. China is not an ally or a strategic partner. They are our competitor and pose the single greatest threat to America's global standing.
Well, we know that. Brad Garlinghouse lays it out here.
I think just so we're all kind of operating from the same set of facts, if you will. The reason why I say I think China is ahead in some ways because, I think the U.S. is behind. And I think the most tangible example of that is when the U.S. government gave regulatory clarity to Bitcoin and Ether. And this was 2 years ago now, more than 2 years ago. The director of corporate finance, Bill Hinman, gave a speech providing clarity that the SEC did not view Bitcoin and Ether as securities. It made it accessible, and so that different platforms, different exchanges, even we just saw an ad before we started from ErisX, different players to say, oh, okay, now there's clarity around that, so we can invest in that. Well, I also think that follow the blockchain and crypto world are aware that today, because of the mining control of Bitcoin and Ether in China, these are technologies controlled by China. And, I think 25 years ago, the US was a leader in making the internet what it is today. But part of that came from regulatory clarity. Part of that came from,
I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family, or ask your friends and family, who is it exactly that's giving China this regulatory edge? It seems to be the people that are in power in the United States now.